Commander Vethril had served in the Silithian Patrol Fleet for 40 years. He had seen strange things in the darkness between stars. He had watched nebulas burn with colors that had no name. He had discovered dead worlds and dying suns. But nothing had prepared him for this night. His ship floated near the edge of the dead zone. This was a place where no one went. The old laws of the Galactic Concord were clear about this. The dead zone was forbidden. It was a graveyard of ancient things, and graveyards were meant to stay silent. But tonight, the silence broke. "Commander," said his sensor officer, a young Silithian with trembling hands, "I am picking up a signal. It is coming from deep inside the dead zone." Vethril walked to the sensor station. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the screen. The signal was weak, but it was real. It pulsed like a heartbeat in the void. "What frequency?" he asked. The officer checked his instruments twice before answering. His voice was barely a whisper. "Human Standard Emergency Band, sir." The bridge went silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing. Every eye turned to the commander. Vethril felt his blood turn cold. Humans. The word itself was almost a myth. 20,000 years had passed since anyone had seen a human. 20,000 years since their worlds went dark and their ships stopped flying. The Galactic Concord had built itself on the ruins of human civilization, never fully understanding what had happened to them. Some said they destroyed themselves in a great war. Others said they ascended to a higher form of existence. But the oldest stories, the ones whispered by species who remembered the ancient times, told a different tale. They spoke of a ship, a ghost ship that carried the last of humanity through the endless dark. A ship called the Lazarus. "Show me the source," Vethril commanded. The screen changed to show a point of light deep in the dead zone, but it was not a star. It was too big to be a planet. It was something else entirely. "Size estimate?" Vethril asked. 12 kilometers long, sir. Maybe more. The readings are impossible. 12 kilometers. Vethril had seen the largest ships in the Concord fleet. The biggest was barely 2 kilometers. Whatever this thing was, it was built by hands that thought on a different scale. He opened a channel to Concord Command. High Admiral Xerix of the Vorn Hegemony answered. His face was hard and covered in battle scars. The Vorn were warriors, and they did not like surprises. "Commander Vethril," Xerix said, "why are you calling on a priority channel?" "High Admiral, we have detected a signal from the dead zone. Human frequency. And we have found something, a ship. A very large ship." Xerix's expression did not change. But Vethril saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear. The Vorn feared nothing in this galaxy. But they remembered humanity. Their ancestors had fought alongside humans in the Hive War. They had seen what humans could do. "Ignore it," Xerix said. "Turn your ship around and leave that sector immediately." "That is a direct order." "Sir, if this is a human vessel," I said, "ignore it." Xerix's voice was sharp like a blade. "The dead zone is forbidden for good reason. Whatever is in there should stay in there. Do you understand?" Vethril understood. But understanding and obeying were not always the same thing. "Yes, High Admiral," he said. "I understand completely." He closed the channel. His officers looked at him with questioning eyes. They knew their commander. They knew he was not the kind of man who walked away from mysteries. "Sir?" the sensor officer asked. "What are your orders?" Vethril stared at the point of light on the screen. 20,000 years. For 20,000 years, the galaxy had wondered what happened to humanity. Scholars had written books about them. Children had grown up hearing stories about the Great Wardens, who saved the galaxy from the Hive. And now, here was a chance to find answers, set a course for those coordinates. Vethril said quietly, "Take us in." "But sir, the High Admiral is not here. I am. And I need to know what that thing is." The ship turned slowly and began to move toward the dead zone. As they crossed the invisible border, Vethril felt a strange sensation. It was like walking into a tomb. The space around them was darker somehow, emptier. Even the distant stars seemed dimmer. They flew for hours. The signal grew stronger with every passing minute. And then, finally, they saw it. The Lazarus hung in the void like a sleeping giant. It was covered in dust and ice from 20,000 years of drifting. Its hull was scarred but unbroken. Strange symbols marked its surface, symbols that no living species could read anymore. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. By the ancestors, the censor officer breathed. It is real. The ghost ship is real. Vethril could not speak. He could only stare at the ancient vessel. This ship had been flying through the stars when his species was still building mud houses on their home world. It had survived longer than entire civilizations. And then something happened that made his heart stop. Lights began to appear on the ship's surface. One by one, they flickered to life like eyes opening after a long sleep. The dust began to shake and fall away as something deep inside the vessel started to move. "Commander," the censor officer shouted. "The ship's engines. They are activating." Vethril watched as blue fire erupted from the back of the Lazarus. The ancient engines roared to life with power that his instruments could not measure. The ghost ship was waking up. "Get us out of here," Vethril ordered. "Now." But even as his ship turned to flee, he knew it was too late. Whatever was happening had already begun. 20,000 years of silence were ending. The humans were coming back, and the galaxy would never be the same. Across the stars, on 100 different worlds, ancient warning systems buried deep underground began to activate. Red lights flashed in forgotten bunkers. Alarms screamed in languages that no one spoke anymore. The old species, the ones who remembered the Hive War, felt something shift in the fabric of space itself. On the Concord capital world, the Grand Council received the first reports. They did not believe them at first. Ghost ships were stories for children. Humanity was dead and gone. But the reports kept coming. More ships detected the signal. More eyes saw the ancient vessel moving through the void. And one message repeated over and over on every frequency, in every language, spoken by a voice that had been silent for 20 millennia. "This is the Lazarus. Humanity endures. We are coming home." The legend had returned. The wardens were awake, and nothing would ever be the same again. Captain Elena Vasquez opened her eyes and immediately wished she had not. Pain flooded her body. Her muscles screamed from 20,000 years of stillness. Her lungs burned as they remembered how to breathe. The taste in her mouth was chemical and bitter. The taste of cryogenic fluid that had kept her alive while the universe moved on without her. She was lying in a glass pod filled with blue liquid. Above her, red emergency lights flashed in slow patterns. Alarms rang somewhere in the distance. She tried to move, but her body refused to obey. "Captain Vasquez," a calm voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere. "Please remain still. Your body needs time to adjust. You have been asleep for a very long time." Elena knew that voice. It was Prometheus, the ship's artificial intelligence. She had heard it 1,000,000 times before the long sleep began. Hearing it now felt like meeting an old friend. "How long?" she managed to say. Her voice was rough like sand. 20,000, for 137 years. "Captain, give or take a few months. 20,000 years. The number hit her like a physical blow. She had known this was possible. The plan had always been to sleep until the danger passed. But hearing the actual number made it real in a way she was not prepared for. The pod opened with a hiss of escaping gas. Elena sat up slowly, her bones cracking with every movement. She looked around the revival chamber and saw other pods opening. Other figures were rising from their long sleep, confused and afraid. "How many survived?" Elena asked. Prometheus paused before answering. That pause told her everything she needed to know. 12,847 crew members have been successfully revived. "I am sorry, Captain. The others did not survive the long sleep. 20,000 years was longer than the cryogenic systems were designed to handle." Elena closed her eyes. They had gone to sleep with over 3 million people on board. Soldiers, scientists, families, children. Now most of them were gone. Their bodies turned to dust in their pods while the ship drifted through the endless dark. "The mission," she said, forcing herself to focus. "Why did you wake us? What happened?" "I detected an external contact. An alien vessel approached our position. Standard protocols required my assessment of potential threats. But that is not the primary reason for revival." Prometheus's voice changed slightly, becoming more serious. "I received a signal, Captain. A precursor signal, originating from deep within what the local species now call Concord space. Elena's blood ran cold. The precursors. That name brought back memories she would rather forget. The ancient beings who had discovered humanity during their first steps into space. The ones who had shared their terrible knowledge and their even more terrible warnings. She climbed out of the pod on shaking legs. A medical robot rolled over to check her vital signs, but she pushed it away. There was no time for that now. Show me the signal, she commanded. A holographic display appeared in the air before her. Strange symbols floated in the blue light, symbols that no human had seen in 20,000 years. Elena recognized them immediately. They were precursor glyphs, the same writing she had studied before the long sleep began. Can you translate it? She asked. The message is simple, Prometheus replied. It says, the hollow stirs, the time has come, wardens arise. Elena felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. She remembered why they had fled. She remembered the prophecy that had driven humanity into exile. The precursors had seen the future in their strange machines. They had seen a war that would consume the entire galaxy. A war triggered by humanity's presence among the stars. To save everyone else. Humanity had chosen to disappear. They had gathered their people, loaded them onto the greatest ship ever built, and sailed into the void. They had hoped that time would change the prophecy. They had hoped that the galaxy would grow strong enough to face the coming darkness without them. But now, something had changed. The signal was clear. The hollow was waking up, and humanity was needed once more. Elena walked through the ship toward the command bridge. Along the way, she passed hundreds of survivors who were still trying to understand what had happened. Some were crying, others were praying. A few sat in silence, staring at nothing, their minds unable to process the scale of time that had passed. She saw children too, young people who had been born on the ship before the long sleep, who had never seen Earth or felt real sunlight on their skin. They looked at her with wide eyes full of questions she could not answer. The bridge was smaller than she remembered. Or maybe she had just grown used to the grand spaces of Earth's cities, cities that no longer existed. She sat in the captain's chair and looked at the main view screen. Stars filled the darkness, strange stars in strange positions. The constellations of Earth were gone. The galaxy had rotated and changed while humanity slept. Prometheus, she said, show me what the galaxy looks like now. A map appeared on the screen. It showed dozens of species spread across thousands of star systems. The Galactic Concord, they called themselves, a union of alien civilizations that had built their peace on the foundation humanity left behind. They forgot about us, Elena whispered. Not entirely, Prometheus corrected. I have been monitoring their communications for the past several hours. They remember humanity as legends and myths, stories for children. They remember the Hive War. They remember the wardens who saved them. The AI paused. They are afraid of us, Captain. Very afraid, Elena understood. Humanity had been terrifying in its prime. They had ended a war that had lasted 10,000 years in less than a decade. They had destroyed the Hive, an enemy that had consumed 1,000 civilizations. To the young species of the Concord, humans were not people. They were monsters from ancient history. What about the Hollow? Elena asked. What do they know about it? Nothing. The Hollow is not in their records. Either the precursors did not warn them, or they have forgotten. Elena made her decision. There was really only one choice. 20,000 years ago, humanity had run away to save the galaxy. Now, running was no longer an option. The Hollow was coming, and someone had to stand against it. Set a course for the source of that signal, she ordered, and open a channel on all frequencies. It is time for the galaxy to remember who we are. She stood and faced the view screen. Somewhere out there, billions of aliens were about to learn that their legends were real. The ghost ship was moving. The wardens were awake. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human vessel Lazarus, she said, her voice strong and clear. To all species of the Galactic Concord, we come in peace, but we also come with a warning. Something ancient is waking up in the darkness. Something that threatens all life in this galaxy. We have waited 20,000 years for this moment. We did not survive the long sleep to watch the stars go dark. She paused and took a breath. Humanity has returned, and we need to talk. Across the galaxy, her words echoed on every channel. in council chambers and military bases, in homes and schools and temples. Beings of 100 different species heard the voice of legend speaking to them. From across the void, the ghost ship was real. The humans were back, and everything they thought they knew about the universe was about to change. The Galactic Concord had not known true fear for 1,000 years, but now fear spread through its worlds like fire through dry grass. In the Great Council Chamber on the capital world, representatives of 47 species argued and shouted at each other. The holographic message from the Lazarus played on repeat above them. Captain Vasquez's face hung in the air like a ghost, her words echoing through the massive hall. Ambassador Kethmora of the Villani people stood at the center of the chaos. She was old even by her species' long standards, and she remembered the stories her grandmother had told her. Stories about the Wardens, stories about humanity. We must respond with open hands, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. The humans speak of peace. They speak of a warning. We should listen to them. High Admiral Xerix slammed his fist on the table. The Vorn warrior's face was twisted with anger and something else, something that looked very much like terror. Listen to them. He roared. Have you forgotten what humans did to the Hive? They did not just defeat them. They erased them. Every ship, every world, every last creature, gone in less than a decade. And you want to welcome these monsters back with open hands? That was 20,000 years ago, Kethmora replied calmly. And the Hive was trying to eat the galaxy. What would you have had them do? I would have had them stay dead. Xerix turned to face the council. My ancestors fought beside humans in the Hive War. They told us stories that I still see in my nightmares. Humans do not think like us. They do not fight like us. They are something else entirely. Something dangerous. The chamber erupted in argument again. Species that had never agreed on anything found themselves united in confusion. Some wanted to make contact. Others wanted to run. A few, like the Vorn, wanted to strike first before humanity could become a threat again. Meanwhile, far from the capital world, Commander Vethral's small patrol ship flew alongside the Lazarus. He had not slept since the ghost ship awakened. He could not stop staring at it through his VIEWPORT. His communication officer spoke up. Commander, we are receiving a direct signal from the human vessel. They want to talk to you specifically. Vethral's heart beat faster. Put it through. The view screen flickered, and suddenly he was looking at a human face. Captain Vasquez appeared tired and sad, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She studied him for a moment before speaking. Commander Vethral, she said, I am told you were the first to find us, and that you disobeyed orders to come looking for us. I respect that. It takes courage to seek truth when your superiors want you to look away. Vethral straightened in his chair. Captain Vasquez, I had to know if the legends were true, and now you know. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Before Vethral could answer, his sensor officer shouted a warning. Commander, multiple contacts dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Vorn warships, 50 of them. Vethral watched in horror as the Vorn battle fleet surrounded the Lazarus. These were not patrol vessels. These were planet killers, armed with weapons that could crack worlds in half. High Admiral Xerix had not waited for the Council's decision. He had taken matters into his own hands. Human vessel, Xerix's voice boomed across all channels. You are ordered to power down your engines and surrender immediately. Any resistance will be met with total destruction. Elena's face remained calm on the view screen. She looked almost amused. High Admiral, I understand your fear. Truly, I do. But attacking us would be a mistake. We are not your enemy. You are a threat to the stability of this galaxy, Xerix replied. And threats must be eliminated. This is your final warning, Elena sighed. Very well. If you must learn the hard way, so be it. But remember, you fired first. The Vorn fleet opened fire. 50 ships unleashed their most powerful weapons at the same moment. Beams of pure energy that could vaporize moons struck the Lazarus from every direction. The space around the ancient vessel turned white with the fury of the attack. Vethral shielded his eyes from the brightness. When the light faded, he expected to see debris and dust. He expected the Lazarus to be gone. Instead, the ship hung in space without a scratch. The weapons that could crack planets had done nothing. Not even the dust on its hull had been disturbed. Impossible, Vethel whispered. Elena's voice came through on every channel. It was not angry. It was not threatening. It was simply tired, like a mother speaking to a misbehaving child. We did not survive 20,000 years of darkness to die at the hands of children. We watched stars die. We saw civilizations rise and fall while we slept. Your weapons are impressive by your standards, but to us, they are toys. The Vorn fleet fired again and again. Each attack was more desperate than the last, but nothing worked. The Lazarus simply absorbed everything they threw at it. Then the humans responded. Elena did not give the order to kill. She gave the order to teach. In exactly 11 seconds, every Vorn ship went dark. Their weapons stopped working. Their engines died. Their shields collapsed. They floated helplessly in space, alive but completely powerless. Stand down, Elena said quietly, or we will be forced to do more than disable your ships. We came here to help, not to fight. But do not mistake our mercy for weakness. Across the galaxy, beings watched the battle in stunned silence. The mighty Vorn fleet, the strongest military force in the Concord, had been defeated in seconds. And the humans had not killed a single person. They had simply shown, with terrible efficiency, that they could have killed everyone if they wanted to. In the council chamber, Ambassador Kethmora spoke into the silence. Now do you understand? They could have destroyed us all. Instead, they showed mercy. Maybe we should start listening to what they have to say. High Admiral Xyrix's image appeared on the council screens. He looked broken. His pride was shattered. His fleet was floating dead in space. For the first time in his life, he had met an enemy he could not fight. What do they want? He asked, his voice hollow. What do the humans want from us? As if in answer, Elena's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Her message was broadcast to every world, every ship, every being with ears to hear. People of the Concord, she said, I know you are afraid of us. I know the stories you tell about humanity. Some of those stories are true. We were warriors once. We ended the Hive War because no one else could. But we did not do it because we wanted power. We did it because the galaxy needed to be saved. She paused, and her expression grew grave. 20,000 years ago, we learned of a threat greater than the Hive. Something ancient and terrible that sleeps in the heart of this galaxy. We called it the Hollow. The precursors, the beings who built the foundations of civilization itself. They feared it so much that they fled the galaxy entirely. They warned us that humanity's presence would trigger its awakening. So we left. We sacrificed everything to give the galaxy time to prepare. Elena looked directly into the camera, and Vethel felt as though she was looking at him personally. The time has run out. The Hollow is waking. And if we do not stand together, every living thing in this galaxy will die. We did not return to rule you. We returned to fight beside you. The question is, will you let us? The galaxy held its breath and waited for an answer. Commander Vethel stepped through the airlock and onto the Lazarus. He was the first alien to board a human vessel in 20,000 years. His legs trembled, but he forced himself to walk forward. The corridor was vast. The ceiling stretched so high above him that he could barely see it in the dim lighting. Everything was built on a scale that made him feel like a small child. This ship was not just large. It was a city, a world unto itself. Captain Elena Vasquez waited for him at the end of the corridor. In person, she looked smaller than she had on the view screen. She was thin from the long sleep, and her hair had turned white from the cryogenic process. But her eyes were still sharp, still burning with purpose. Welcome aboard, Commander, she said. Thank you for coming. I know it took courage. I had to see for myself, Vethel replied. I had to understand who you really are. Elena smiled sadly. Then let me show you. She led him through the ship. They walked for hours, passing through sections that had been built for millions of people. Now they were empty, silent, like a graveyard of dreams. 3 million people went to sleep on this ship, Elena explained as they walked. Families, children, scientists and soldiers, artists and farmers. The best of humanity, preserved for a future we hoped would need us. She stopped beside a window that looked into a vast chamber filled with empty cryogenic pods. 12,000 survived. The rest, she could not finish the sentence. Vethel felt something he had not expected to feel. Pity, these were not the invincible monsters from the old stories. These were people who had sacrificed everything and lost almost everyone they loved. Why did you do it? He asked. Why did you leave? Elena led him to a room filled with ancient artifacts. Strange machines hummed with energy that his instruments could not measure. Symbols covered the walls, the same symbols from the signal that had started all of this. The precursors, Elena said. They were the oldest civilization in the galaxy. They built the first starships, discovered the first forms of faster-than-light travel, planted the seeds of intelligent life on 1,000 worlds. They watched over this galaxy for billions of years. She touched one of the machines, and a holographic image appeared. It showed a swirling darkness at the center of the galaxy. Something that was not a black hole, but something worse. Something hungry. They called it the Hollow. It is not a creature or a species. It is more like a disease, a corruption that spreads through minds and civilizations. It feeds on fear and hatred. It turns peaceful beings into killers. It drove the hive to madness, turned them into the monsters that nearly destroyed everything. Vethril stared at the image. He felt a cold terror growing in his chest. The precursors tried to fight it. Elena continued. They failed. In the end, they fled the galaxy entirely, hoping that without intelligent life to feed on, the Hollow would go back to sleep. And it did. For billions of years, it slept. Until humanity came, Vethril said, understanding now. Yes, the precursors left warnings in their ruins. They told us that our presence, our emotions, our very nature would eventually wake the Hollow again. So we had a choice. Stay and doom the galaxy, or leave and give everyone else a chance to prepare. You chose to leave. Elena nodded. We hoped 20,000 years would be enough time. We hoped the young species would grow strong, would unite, would be ready to face the Hollow together. She looked at him with eyes full of pain. Looking at the Concord now, seeing how divided you all are. I wonder if we made the right choice. Vethril thought about the council, the endless arguments, the petty conflicts between species that should have been working together. He thought about High Admiral Xerox, who had attacked the Lazarus out of fear instead of trying to understand. We can change, he said. We can learn. Elena smiled at him. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. That is why I invited you here, Commander, because you were willing to look for truth instead of running from it. The galaxy needs more people like you. She took him to meet the survivors. 12,000 humans, still recovering from their long sleep. Vethril saw soldiers maintaining ancient weapons, scientists studying star charts that were 20,000 years out of date, children playing in carters that had once held millions. One little girl ran up to Elena and tugged at her sleeve. Captain, is the scary alien going to hurt us? Elena knelt down to her level. No, sweetie. Commander Vethril is our friend. He is going to help us. The girl looked at Vethril with wide eyes. She had never seen an alien before. She had never seen anything except the inside of the ship. He tried to make his face look friendly, though he was not sure what friendly looked like to a human. Hi, the girl said. I am Maya. Do you have a family? The question caught him off guard. Yes, I have a daughter about your age. Maya smiled. That is nice. I hope she does not get scared when the darkness comes. The words chilled Vethril to his core. Even the children knew what was coming. Later, Elena showed him the evidence. Reports from Concord space that made no sense until you understood the Hollow. Entire colonies go in silent overnight. Species that had been peaceful for centuries suddenly attacking their neighbors. A wave of madness spreading slowly, but surely from the galactic core. It is already beginning. Elena said, the Hollow is waking up, testing its reach. These are just the first symptoms. It will get worse. How do we stop it? Vethril asked. Elena brought up plans on the holographic display. Schematics for weapons and shields. Medical procedures that could protect minds from the Hollow's influence. Strategies developed over centuries of preparation. We share everything, she said. All of our technology, all of our knowledge. We hold nothing back. The galaxy must unite, or the galaxy will fall. Vethril studied the plans. They were beyond anything the Concord could have developed on its own. Weapons that could hurt something that was not truly physical. Shields that protected thoughts as well as bodies. This was the gift humanity had preserved for 20,000 years. Why would you give this away? He asked. You could use it to rule us all. Elena shook her head. We never wanted to rule anyone. We just wanted to protect people. That is all humanity has ever really wanted. To keep the people we love safe. She paused. The hollow feeds on division and fear. The only way to defeat it is through unity and hope. If we keep secrets, if we try to stay superior, we lose. Everyone loses. Vethel made a decision then. He would return to the Concord. He would tell them what he had learned. He would fight for unity, even if it cost him his career, his reputation, his life. I will help you, he said. I will make them listen. Elena clasped his hand in hers. Her grip was weak from the long sleep, but her determination was unbreakable. Thank you, Commander. Together, we might just have a chance. But even as they spoke, far away in the galactic core, something stirred. The hollow had been patient for billions of years. It could wait a little longer. Soon, all the lights in the galaxy would go out, and in the darkness, it would feed. A signal pulsed outward from the core, reaching every corner of the galaxy. When sensors picked it up, when translators tried to understand it, they all got the same word in every language known and unknown. Found. The hunt had begun. The galaxy burned. In the 6 months since the hollow's signal, everything had changed. Worlds that had known peace for centuries now knew only war. Species turned against each other, driven mad by whispers they could not hear, but could not ignore. Fleets that had been allies became enemies overnight. The hollow did not need to attack directly. It simply corrupted everything it touched. But humanity had prepared for this moment. Commander Vethel stood on the bridge of his new flagship, leading a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Vorn warriors flew beside Volani peacekeepers. Silithian scouts coordinated with species that did not even have names in common language. Enemies had become brothers. Strangers had become family. Because they had no other choice, Elena had made good on her promise. Human technology flowed freely to every species willing to fight. Shields that protected minds from corruption. Weapons that could hurt something that was not truly alive. And most importantly, the truth about what they were fighting. The hollow was not just an enemy. It was the opposite of civilization itself. It was the darkness that waited at the end of all things. It fed on fear and hatred because those emotions were doorways into the mind. Every act of violence, every betrayal, every moment of despair made it stronger. The only way to fight it was to refuse to give in, to choose hope when hope seemed impossible, to choose unity when division was easier. The Allied fleet gathered at the edge of the galactic core. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all flying together toward the source of the darkness. At the center of the formation, the Lazarus led the way. Elena stood on the bridge of her ancient vessel. She had not slept in days. Around her, the 12,000 survivors of humanity worked with desperate efficiency. They knew what was coming. They had known for 20,000 years. Vethral's face appeared on her view screen. Captain, the fleet is ready. All species have confirmed their positions. We are with you. Elena felt something warm bloom in her chest. Pride, gratitude, and yes, hope. 6 months ago, this alliance would have been impossible. Now it was the only thing standing between existence and oblivion. Thank you, Commander. All of you. Whatever happens today, know that you have already accomplished something miraculous. You have proven that life can choose to stand together. She turned to her crew. Take us in. The fleet moved toward the galactic core. As they approached, the stars themselves seemed to dim. The light was being eaten by something vast and terrible. And at the center of the darkness, the hollow waited. It did not have a true form. It was not a thing that could be seen or touched. But as the fleet drew closer, they began to feel it. A weight pressing on their minds, voices whispering horrible things, memories of every fear, every failure, every moment of weakness. Ships began to falter. Crews started to turn on each other. The hollow was testing them, probing for weakness, looking for ways to corrupt them from within. But the human shields held. The technology that Elena had shared created barriers around their minds, walls that the hollow could not easily breach. And when the whispers tried to find a way through, something else pushed back. Hope, unity, the knowledge that they were not alone. All ships, Elena commanded, remember why you are here. Remember who you are fighting for. Do not let it in. The fleet steadied. The moment of doubt passed. They pushed forward. Then the hollow attacked in force that it manifested as impossible shapes, geometries that hurt to look at, darkness that had weight and hunger. It struck the fleet with corrupted ships crewed by the lost, beings who had fallen to its influence and now served as its soldiers. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. Ships exploded, heroes fell, species that had survived for millions of years were wiped out in moments. But for every ship that fell, others took its place. For every hero who died, their sacrifice inspired others to fight harder. Vethel led the Vorn warriors in a charge that broke through the Hollow's first line of defense. He thought of his daughter, waiting for him back home, and refused to let the darkness take him. The Volani healers worked tirelessly to pull corrupted minds back from the edge, proving that the Hollow's influence could be reversed if you were strong enough. And at the center of it all, the Lazarus pushed toward the heart of the darkness. Elena knew what had to be done. The precursors had left a weapon, a device capable of disrupting the Hollow's core, but it required a living mind to activate, a mind that would be destroyed in the process. She had known this moment would come. She had known it for 20,000 years. Captain, Prometheus said, the weapon is ready, but the probability of your survival is high. No. Elena interrupted. I have always known. She thought about her crew, the 12,000 who had survived the long sleep, the children who had never seen the sun. She thought about Maya, the little girl who had asked about Vethral's family. She thought about all the species out there fighting and dying for a future they might never see. 20,000 years ago, humanity had sacrificed everything to give the galaxy a chance. Now it was her turn to do the same. She walked to the weapon chamber alone. The device was beautiful in its own way, ancient technology that hummed with power beyond understanding. She placed her hands on the controls and felt it connect to her mind. To all ships, she said. Her voice broadcast across the fleet. This is Captain Elena Vasquez. It has been my greatest honor to fight beside you, to see what the galaxy can become when we choose to stand together. She took a deep breath. Remember us. Remember that hope is stronger than fear. Remember that unity defeats darkness. She activated the weapon. Light exploded from the Lazarus. Not ordinary light, but something deeper, something that was the opposite of everything the Hollow represented. It was the accumulated hope of 20,000 years of waiting, the love of 3 million people who had given up their lives for a future they would never see, the courage of 12,000 survivors who had refused to give up. The light struck the Hollow at its core. The darkness screamed, a sound that was not sound but pure hatred and agony. It thrashed and fought, trying to escape, but the light followed it everywhere. Elena felt herself burning away. Her body dissolved into energy. Her mind expanded until it touched every corner of the galaxy. And in her final moment, she felt no fear, only peace. The Hollow shattered. The darkness broke apart like glass and scattered into nothing across the galaxy. The whispers stopped. The corrupted minds suddenly cleared. The war was over. Elena Vasquez was gone. The surviving fleet floated in sudden silence. Where the Lazarus had been, there was only empty space and fading light. The ship that had carried humanity through 20,000 years of darkness had completed its final mission. Vethral wept. He was not ashamed of his tears. All around him, warriors and scientists and children were crying too. They cried for humanity. They cried for Elena. They cried with relief and grief and gratitude. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy rebuilt. The alliance that had formed to fight the Hollow did not dissolve. Instead, it grew stronger. Species that had never trusted each other learned to work together. The old divisions seemed foolish now, petty compared to what they had faced. The surviving humans were welcomed as heroes. They spread across the galaxy, sharing their knowledge, building new lives among species that had once feared them. Maya grew up on the Volani homeworld, adopted by a family that loved her. She would become a great diplomat, dedicated to keeping the alliance strong. On the Concord capital world, they built a memorial. It was a simple structure, a tower of white stone that reached toward the stars. At its base was an inscription carved in 100 languages. For 20,000 years, they waited in the dark so we could live in the light. Never forget, Never again. Vethel visited the memorial every year on the anniversary of the battle. He brought his daughter and later his grandchildren. He told them stories about Captain Elena Vasquez, about humanity, about the long sleep and the sacrifice that had saved everything. Are they really gone? His granddaughter asked one day. Vethel looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 12,000 humans were building new lives, having children, creating art and science and love. They were not many, but they were enough. No, he said with a smile. They are not gone. They never really left. They are part of us now. Part of all of us. Above them, the stars shone bright and clear. The darkness was gone. The future was waiting. And among the countless lights of the galaxy, humanity's flame burned on, small but eternal. The Wardens had returned. They had done what they promised, and they would never be forgotten.